I know a lot of us are excited to hear your story. I was telling the team a little bit of about what we were talking about yesterday, and they was like, "What?" Like, I'm like, "We need to make a mixtape." Like, apparently there's money in it. I don't think nobody would listen to me, but
or
okay. I'm gonna go ahead and get started with the intro while people are signing in. Welcome, everyone, and thank you so much for joining this month's Story of event where we invite and highlight the stories of entrepreneurs and small business owners making their mark in Iowa. We want to remind you that as you create your own story, treat yourself to this time each month to rekindle your entrepreneurial spirit. My name is Teleza Daniels, and I am the director of the Iowa Center's WBC. The Iowa Center's WBC is funded in part through a cooperative agreement with the U.S. Small Business Administration. You will receive an email after this event from my colleague, Katie Hinches, thanking you for attending today's session, information on how to connect to our speaker, as well as a form to complete. Please do us a big favor and take some time to fill this form out. This information allows us to continue providing free educational programming for small business owners in Iowa. Now go ahead and please take some time to locate the chat function on your Zoom screens so you could join the conversation by introducing yourself and your business, including links or your website, asking questions, or adding comments. Today's story of guest speaker is Marquas Ashworth. um, Marquas Ashworth is a local music artist who launched a record label, Media Fresh Records, who in 2016 began making small batch rye whiskey labeled Zaid. The whiskey can be found in 400 stores, including locally at Hy-Vee and in 7 other states, and now is in the process of developing a commercial building that will house a nonprofit Black and Brown owned business incubator, coffee shop, restaurant, and distillery. Thank you for joining us, Marquez.
yeah,
Please
thank you
tell
for
us
having me.
a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me first and foremost, and shout out to everybody that's joined in today. Um, but yeah, I mean, I guess I'll start from the very beginning with it. Moved to Iowa after we were trying to we were moved originally to Iowa to actually try to get my father in a cancer treatment center, and he ended up passing maybe a few months after we moved here. Um, and I stuck around and went to college. Didn't have the money to go to college, which kind of started the whole journey. Um, I was an MC. I was battle rapping and everything all through high school and everything. And so I bought some equipment with a little money that I had and started recording different freestyles and songs in my dorm. And ended up selling them to try to get the money up for those tuition payments. Um, and it worked. I ended up selling about 10,700 copies. But maybe I probably handed out about 1,500 of them to get people kind of acclimated to what was going on. And so I ended up having a bunch more cash than I needed to pay that tuition bill that semester, and which kind of spread me up towards another thing. So I pressed up a merch line, was trying to sell that and trying to add on to the success of the mixtapes that I was putting out on campus. And the merch line wasn't working. No one was buying it. I guess I wasn't a fashionista. I wasn't designing it right. I guess it wasn't working. No one was liking it. So it ended up making me have to go further outside of the circle where I was trying to sell. So I ended up in Carroll, Iowa. And for a lot of people who don't know, Carroll, Iowa is a small town in central Iowa. You can't even get to it by like a conventional highway. You have to take like back roads, back roads, back roads. Ended up meeting this lady there at a bar who was having just as bad a day as me. And she was telling me about her family and how they got cheated out of a recipe by this big company that sold for billions of dollars, and how they they used to make whiskey for Al Capone, and they used to sneak it to Alcatraz, and they used to do all this. And I'm just thinking it's just a lady drunk at the bar. Follow her to her car. She says, I got some. So I try some of the white whiskey that she said she had. It's delicious. Tastes like vanilla water. So I'm like, I'm intrigued. So I'll follow her to her husband. You know, they got a nice little spot out in the country. They want to show me more, but they didn't really trust me yet. So ended up blindfolding me, put me on the back of this little four-wheeler type thing. We ride for about 50. I'm drunk, keep in mind too. So that's a part of where the bravery to ride through the countryside of Iowa and all that. But ended up riding for about 15 minutes on the back of this four-wheeler, landed this spot where there's basically, I get unblindfolded. There's this spot where they've got two freights basically like buried up under each other and like welded, where it's like a two-level thing. And get in, and there's barrels of whiskey, there's pictures of Al Capone, there's pictures of the grandma with different crime bosses, there's different receipts and pictures and bottles and yeast and all this different old stills. And so I'm like, I still got some cash on me. Keep in mind, I didn't spend all of it. So I took a portion of that money and I invested into learning how to actually like distill and how to actually on my own recreate some of those incredible recipes. And then I sat on it for about 5 years, about 4 or 5 years, because I was convinced that I was about to blow up and be a rapper. So I didn't really have time to, I just sold 10,000 copies of a mixtape. I don't have time to really focus on this liquor. I'm gonna invest in it, but I'm gonna wait on it. Started throwing festivals, started really, signing artists and putting out more mixtapes around town. And the turning point, I actually started doing a festival called Fresh Fest, which is supposed to be like Des Moines' premier hip hop festival. And I wasn't getting the support from the city that I wanted. I was basically breaking even. It would cost me like 20 grand to throw it, and I'd make like 21 grand. And so it was one of those things where it's like, yo, this isn't. And so I just thought about it, and I just reinvested the rest of that money that I had into actually taking those skills that I learned in college into actual bottling and into getting that rye and the renting space and taking through the first steps to being able to actually hit a shelf. And I knew I could hit those shelves because I'd already developed relationships as a musician. I was already performing in different hobbies. I was already on different places. So I already had some of the relationships with some of the people that I knew I would need to actually make a retail brand work. And so a few months after that, well, not a few months, a couple years after that decision, buying bottles and buying labels, I launched this, which was the first edition. So this was actually my white whiskey, that first recipe that I learned, Zayed White Rye. And so I started the company, named it Zayed. It's named Zayed after an African general. He was born a slave, bought his freedom, landed on the Rock of Gibraltar, took over Spain, and was known for being a fashionista. His famous quote when he landed on the Rock of Gibraltar, of course, was "Burn the boats," right? So he said, "We burn the boats. Defeat isn't an option." So I came to that point after this worked, where I knew that, all right, I got this extra money. How can I spin this back to like combine it with the music? So with Burn the Boats is also the name of my latest album. So the only place you could actually get the album was by buying the bottle. And so it was one of those things just to kind of drive sales and just try to create that cross energy. And so after that, I dropped that. And so I was still just basically statewide. And then like the corporate Hy-Vee structure kind of caught wind of how much volume I was moving through their products without really having that corporate conversation with them. And that led to the big deal where we did my biggest order at that point, where it was about 3,000 cases. And we distributed across 400, 500 stores in 7 states. And then that led to being able to invest into being able to set up a nationwide shipping apparatus. And so out of a warehouse in Florida, being able to ship nationwide all our products now. And I'm kind of breezing through it, and we can stop and
Yeah. I was gonna say,
yeah,
stop. Okay. Because
my
with
bad.
it, and plus I know your story, so
Yeah,
you're skipping over some Major points.
Major, I know. My bad.
First one, when you're in college, and you're doing the mixtape, you're doing the merch,
Hmm.
um, normally any human being, when you get a large amount of money, you're going to go buy a car, you're going to go on vacation, you're going to buy a bunch of clothes. How or why? What made it in your mind to like reinvest in yourself and keep on reinvesting in yourself? Like, is it a lesson you learned from somewhere, or
Well,
is it just
yeah, it was a combination of a few things. Like my dad had always had me on, certain economic things that we need to be mindful of as a people. And then just in the like, I'm from Kansas City originally, right? And so I got a chance to be next to Tech Nine and a few of these others. Tech Nine, for people who may not be familiar, is the number one independent artist of all time. He was just on the Forbes list, generated I think 25 million this year, totally independent, has a 200-acre facility that he produces everything for his label and artists and touring. And um, what I saw was what you could do is if you just took the time and invested. Like if you in those early stages, I realized that the only separation between a master P and any normal rapper or any great investor and a normal employee is just taking that initial risk and just I knew that if I sacrificed now, I could really, really, really get the things that I really, really want to enjoy later in life. And
and
so,
that is a number one lesson I think a lot of small business owners, um it's a lesson.
yeah,
You have to take the risk, you have to invest in yourself, um and you just have to go out there and try it. So now, while you're a rapper
mhm,
and doing the festivals, and now you have your liquor brands, you have the opportunity to sign with a label versus being independent. Please
yeah.
tell us that story.
So my first, and I don't want to front like if they were like the craziest, like Justin Bieber level deals, but just my little. So after I put out that first mixtape, I sold those copies on campus. I started getting some like interest where the conversations were starting, letters come in, phone calls, messages. The biggest deal offer I got was actually after I put out Burn the Boats, and it shipped all over the country and was doing all that from Interscope, from Jimmy Iovine and everybody over there. And it just didn't make any sense. I mean, the thing is when you look at, for one, when you're especially dealing with a label, there's basically just a big bank, and you have to look at it like that. It's just I didn't see a way that I'll be able to work with a label. And if I'm already able to make 100 grand, let's say I'm able to make 100 grand from a small batch release of my whiskey, you offering me 150 grand in a 10 album deal and you own everything, and then I have to give you a portion of everything I sell. A portion of everything I sell would include the whiskey too. And it just, if I can generate 100,000 from mixtapes, and I can generate more money from whiskey sales and do my own festivals, and I can tour myself, and I can shoot my own videos, and I can shoot my own talk shows, and I can broker my own deals. The only thing I really need a label to do is introduce me to like Charlemagne or like put me in a room with Jay-Z. Like other than that, I can do everything that a label could do for me. And I don't see any other artists that are on shelf other than
And
50 and Diddy and people that aren't dealing with the labels. And so
And so that's another very important business lesson. Of course, when people are interested in you or interested in your business and want to partner with you, I think a lot of the times we're like, yes, like, oh my God, somebody is excited about the same thing I'm excited with. But like for you, of course, a record label is a bank, aka they're just loaning you money
they're
and
just
you
loaning
have
you
to
money.
pay it back.
Yeah,
Um, but
yeah.
even when you're dealing with partnerships, you always have to um, evaluate your pros and your cons, because not all partnerships are the best partnerships for you. So that's just another lesson that I think we all need to pay attention to, um, and just think of it. You know what? I love burn the boats. Like burn the
Thank you.
boats. Defeat is not an option. I think that is probably going to be my mantra for the next year. um,
Yeah, that's
because it's a life lesson. Sometimes with small business, you have to like say like I'm all in 100%,
yeah,
and I'm not willing to turn back.
yeah,
So now you've invested your money from the mixtape into your liquor business.
yeah,
How did you learn about the laws and the regulations and the paperwork and
yeah,
everything? Because we know, of course, well, you told me, I did not know, but Iowa is where all the good liquor came from or comes from.
yeah. Well,
And
it's
I,
one of those you see, and you kind of touched on it just a minute ago, where it's in the relationships that you have and who you do decide to partner with, who you do decide to work with. I figured out early on that if I wanted to get this liquor company going, I wasn't gonna. I mean, to start a distillery properly, you might need 1 to 1.5 million off the gate just to get it going. And so I was looking at it from a standpoint is how can I piece this together? And so for me, it started with like, okay, let me just get a space where I can just make it, where I can make and store as much as I can and barrel as much as I can. And then let me find someone who can bottle it for me. I can't afford to, especially at that point, I couldn't afford to hire 20 full-time employees to bottle 8 hours a day, 40 hours a week. I couldn't do it. And so it was one of those things where in discovering like just who to talk to, how to talk to people, being humble, I wasn't afraid to go into a room and just not know. I wasn't afraid to go into a room and ask and get help and sit on the phone and go to that conference and that's on both ends because you don't just want to hear the winning stories, you want to hear the losing stories too. You want to find the people that failed, talk to them and say, yo, what did, and one of the earliest things that I learned was not to come out with 30 or 40 different variations of things, trying to keep up with orders for 30 to 40 different. I mean, the biggest thing in business, especially once you get going, is how do you properly upscale growth? And that was the thing that early on that I was blessed to have people around me that helped me understand how to slowly grow. And I had a couple little bumps for a few people probably aware of them. I had a couple little bumps for orders were bigger than even I knew how to handle. But um yeah,
you've always, and so that's another important lesson. We were talking, and I know this is something that we really work on here. um a lot of small business owners, they don't have the background, they don't have the family, they don't have people around them that have the knowledge, the business knowledge, they don't have the connections, they don't have the network. So it's about surrounding yourself with like-minded people, building that network, getting out there, educating yourself. It's not hard, or it's not easy. It's
yeah,
very hard. And I
yeah,
could only imagine how hard it was for you to break into that type of business. I mean, that's why there's bootleggers and moonshine, because it's
yeah.
expensive and it's difficult, to
A
get in
lot of
that
red tape.
business.
Yeah. Every
Exactly.
state basically functions as a different country. So like even to if I want to sell a bottle in Oklahoma, I have to go through the entire process of whatever that state is, deal with the distributor there. It's a total different. And so yeah, it's not. And you hit it on the head even more, where it's like it's. I don't want to give off the. It's been a learning experience from the very beginning. Like taking and bootstrapping money. I still have weird relationships with banks. Like it's one of those things where um you take started with I had $800. Let me spend 400 on it on some studio equipment. All right, let me take that money that I made from this mixtape and put it into this. Let's take that money and put it into that. You just keep growing, and then eventually you'll have a circle of things that kind of support and prop each other up. And so the music as it goes, the liquor goes. If the as the liquor goes, the music goes, and then those funnel into more things. And
And
yeah,
so let's talk about the studio. I mean,
sure,
okay, so I know the studio is more of a partnership,
yeah,
but you've used one thing to move on to another thing to move on to another thing. The thing I love about your story is you did bootstrap, but you always see a need.
yeah.
So you fulfill the need. So tell a little bit about your story with the studio.
Yeah, I mean it's a little bit of similar how I set up early on with the alcohol actually, where I knew that I couldn't afford to set up a full TV studio. I knew I couldn't afford to maybe put 200 grand into a space and lease the space. So it was one of those things where let me link up with other like-minded people and let's co-op something. Let's create something that we can all use and all prop up our entities. And similar to like with a lot of people probably watched during the pandemic, I did a talk show named Sunday Supper, where that was a collaboration between myself, Sonic Factory Studios, which is over by Drake, Jabbermouth Media. It was a collective of us, IPR. It was a collective of us that came together to create an entity that we could all use. And so even now, where it's like at first it was just like, oh, we can record albums and I can pull a producer in, I can pull Brandon Darner in, I can do something really fly like that. But now it's turned into, well, yo, I can shoot a commercial in my space for my product, and I can shoot other commercials for other people's products, and I can shoot other content for other content
Just
creators, and I
go
can
down the hallway.
that's just yeah. I mean, and you can finding ways to, once you already have your system and machine running, to allow that machine to run with other people's support, and so like using, I'm not always recording, so how can I make money from that space even when I'm not in there? I'm not always shooting commercials, so how can I finagle that to, and then that income comes into being able to support more artistic endeavors. It's just a matter, you just create wheels of income for each thing that you do, and then they begin to take care of themselves.
That's another thing. I love that you see that you find out what the need is, and then you support it, and then you brought a whole group together. Everybody came together to work with the community, so you don't have to keep on going to different places and
Yeah.
Googling and figuring out, okay, am I going to get quality service when I go over here? Or, well, everybody already knows, yes, it's good. So let's just keep on working with the same organization. Okay, so now we know you use the mixtape money and some of the merch money to roll over into the liquor.
Yeah.
Now, and then you of course use some of the liquor money and the merch money and the mixtape money for the studio. Now, what did you decide to do after the liquor? Where did you roll that money into?
So I was at a weird point, even with like um the company was growing, and then I started looking at like from a liquor standpoint, I'm missing out on tasting room money, I'm missing out on increased production space. um and so I was looking for land. I was looking for land to build a distillery. I was looking for something in the city. um and it just so happened that I stumbled on a piece of property that was perfect. It was close proximity to downtown. um it was directly in my community. I had the opportunity to create more people like me and people around me, and at the same time make money. Conscious capital is my whole mantra. Making money and making an impact. And so it led me to I started a real estate development firm, and with this piece of land that I found, that I worked with the Sixth Avenue corridor, submitted an idea of a concept, hired, obviously went into the process of hiring architects and bringing on other consultants and attorneys, um, just to make sure that everything would be presented right, and that I'd have a team that could bang against other established development firms in the city and state, and launch Center at Six project, which is it's slated to be a $10 million 4-story mixed use retail development. We're looking at about 12,000 square foot of retail space. About 6,000 square foot of that is going to be a Black and brown business incubator, with the opportunity to upsell singular products, the whole nine. And so yeah, I took that money and I decided it was one of those things, and I can kind of talk about that too, because I think there's confusion sometimes when you're telling people that you're building a $10 million building. Like that doesn't mean I have $10 million to build a building. It's, as with anything, it's an initial investment, and then you wait to see what partners and what entities and where money falls in terms of building out a capital stack. Um,
And
a lot of
so
yeah, and
I,
I won't
I
rant. But
we met you. I met you. Well, I followed you for years. I followed you since the mixtape days, but
word.
I met you in person at a round table. Um, And I think something that I just found shocking is when you were telling the story of you just needed $40,000
Yeah.
and you could not get a loan from anywhere for $40,000,
Yo.
but you were able to get $10 million in
Well,
grants.
it's the most interesting thing, and to be clear, with that capital stack, there's a portion of it will probably be grants, but a lot of that is bank loans and all that, which is a part of this, the funny. So I talked about earlier when I launched, when I did that big massive order, it was like 3,000 cases. So peep this, it was a thing where in alcohol, you're always waiting. You sometimes your payments, so I might ship something out today, but I might not get paid for it for 90 days. So I had an issue where I shipped all these cases out. Wonderful. A lot of it sold out. And I was in an in-between space of I had just paid for all the bottles and doing all that, where I needed another basically loan just to refill the orders while I waited the 60 to 90 days for my receivables. I was running around the banks with orders, letters from vice presidents of companies, product
Oh, and you
lists,
would have already had the
pictures,
contract.
already
You
had the
would have,
contracts.
oh,
I was running around to banks with, hey, I need 40 grand so that I can turn it into 100. It was like 113 grand, and I can pay you back in 2 weeks. And if we keep this going, every month will look like this from here on out. If you just fill this first order, I couldn't, I had congressmen and senators, and I had people banging for me trying to get banks to just, couldn't do it. Couldn't do it. Couldn't get a single bank to work with me. Ended up having to once again bootstrap it, doing shows, doing speaking engagements. Let me sell this. Let me do a pop up over here. Let me write a verse over here. Let me sell my barreled product to other companies so they can sell the stuff. The amount of different things that I came up with to even like get over that hurdle, to actually getting over the hurdle, starting this development firm, running into the same banks. And now the conversations are versus now where the banks are literally like, you'll have conversations with banks asking to be involved. How much money would you like for the development? What level can we get involved? Do you need 2 or 3? What do you need to build that balcony? I mean, it was almost surreal.
and I know
Um,
it was heartbreaking to
it
not
is.
get the $40,000. And
It
then,
was,
but we can say you learned several lessons. I mean, I hate to turn your negative into a positive, but
but it was, because now I'm running around debt free with multiple companies in the black. Um,
and the
yeah,
lesson where you figured out to sell your leftover to other
yeah.
businesses to
I mean,
sell.
it's one of those. It taught me how to. One of the great things about struggle in those type of circumstances is it teaches you all the avenues of the business that you already have. Like it taught me how, on the most simplest of levels, with the things that I have, even though I can't afford more bottles and labels, I have 400 or 500 barrels of whiskey ready to go right now. Maybe I can raise this money by selling a barrel or two to let someone do a small batch rare release somewhere else. Those type of things that I learned, and so what's cool about it, even now in building out my facility and planning that, I now have multiple clients that I can work with around the country to actually continue those type of things, continue those type of rare releases in other places. Um, it's just, I mean, that's just the, and I'm saying all this. I'm done rolling more money into more things. I think with the too many things going on, I think with the music, the development firm, and the liquor endeavors, those are going to be the buckets that I put my things into. But in terms of even raising money for the development, when you're looking at raising, 10 to 12 million dollars for a capital stack, I'm probably out of pocket maybe 100, 200 when it's all said and done. Um, but what you're doing is building. It's a long-term equity play, and when you especially look at making these type of long-term equity plays, you look at how do you not only benefit yourself, but how do you infuse into the community so the community around it is also beneficial from it. And so that's when you have transformative projects that take on a life of their own, right? Like Center at Six, even naming it Center at Six, a lot of people don't know Center Street was Des Moines' Black Wall Street. And then they built Kiowa through it, essentially. Um, so naming it Center at Six, you know, revitalizing and recapturing that energy of what was lost. And that's a part of the whole thing. And this, I'm probably a little all over the place with where I am, but
No, just keep it. Nope. That's where that
yeah,
was actually going to be my next question is explaining what Center and Sixth is and why did you name it and what are your plans?
yeah. Center at Six, the goal was to create an environment of where Black and brown entrepreneurs can thrive and have. I mean, you know, I look at, even when I was looking at trying to initially start and build my distillery out, it was weird for me to put something way out in Milwaukee or put something out in Clive or something like that when I knew that most of my purchases were coming in the city. And I knew that the people that initially supported me and the people that would be coming every day to come and see me in my distillery, laugh with me, were probably in that neighborhood. And I just started looking at other Black and brown business owners and looking at, you know, they're probably going through the same thing. You know, when you have conversations with, and I haven't even announced the people that are the anchor businesses, but, you know, I wanted to create a live work environment where we could have our own um, culture and have our own a place centralized where not only just for us, but where the state of Iowa and globally can know they can come and support Black and brown businesses outside of the anchor tenants. The incubator itself will have the opportunity for people to, you know, buy those singular one-off products, for small entrepreneurs to come and you know, get that training and get those connections and upsell their products through different chains that I've already worked with and provide that accounting, like the whole nine, everything that made it a 5, 6, 7, 8 year process for me to make it maybe a 3 year process for the next person. Um,
So
and while at
you
the same
put
time making it fly, because I'm an artist. So like, yo, every few months, new art wrapped on the building, like, you know, having artists of residence on site, you know, having jazz bands playing at lunch, having artist release parties, you know, like when 50 Cent was here, having conversations with people like that to like, yo, next time you pull up, my building will be ready. We need to do the whiskey release at Center at Six. Like those type of cultural things that we'll be able to pull off and re-synergize the city. Um,
so it's not just the incubator, it's not just the
no,
distillery, it's not just
no.
this is like a whole thing, a cultural center.
This is a
And
cultural center.
okay,
It's a tourism
okay.
landmark for the city. Like, and that's, yeah, yeah. It's not, we wanted, I wanted to create something that wasn't so much a service corridor, but something that more so celebrates the entrepreneurial spirit and startup energy that exists in the community and provides that place where, because just like me as a consumer, I want to find new products and things to try too. So putting that in a space where you can, yo, you can come and get a coffee, you can come and get some jerk chicken, you can come and try a new pop-up restaurant, you can get a new fly piece of apparel, you can get a new rare whiskey, you can go, I mean, you can live, you can eat, you can work, you can play. There's a festival probably happening out front just to create that atmosphere. And we didn't,
So
you know, as a team, we didn't see this replicated anywhere else. So just thought it would
right.
be a tremendous opportunity.
It's something new and different and you're creating something for the community, so that's amazing. I want to remind everybody to please feel free to add questions in the chat. Take this opportunity to tap into the amazing mind of Marquez. I mean, this is also a resource. I think we could see you as a resource as well.
Oh yeah.
um, I think I know a lot of people now, they're super interested in grants. And when I came to you, I was like, dang, he must have took a million classes and he must have did this and that to write the grants.
And that's a part of it. And you know what, I'm looking even in the question now, I think that's kind of what someone is kind of getting at now, is like, how do I build those relationships and all that? Like, you, I hired people. Like I've networked with people. Like I knew spot on that I wasn't a grant writer. I'm a musician and a businessman. I didn't know a thing about writing grants. So I hired someone who was exceptional at writing grants. I knew that even with the development, when I started the development firm, it wasn't just me hiring architects. It was, I went and talked to people who are the top developers in the state, and I asked them if they would join my development team as consultants and helping steer the project with Christensen Development. Um, Even with liquor, where it's like, yo, I mean, with on every lane, I tried to align with people um, that know what they're doing. This, and that's a part of, being humble and saying, hey, will you help me with this? And I might not have all the money up front now, but I'll pay you more on the back end if it comes to fruition, or coming up with ways that you can get your foot in the door to even make some of those relationships work. I mean, obviously some of those you're going to have to maybe bootstrap it up and pay those attorneys, especially attorneys and architects. Some of those things are things that you kind of have to just dole out. But
I
yeah,
think, I mean, to be honest and true, we have to just accept the fact that small business owners, they're going to hear no. You're going to
you're
hear
gonna
no a
hear nine
lot.
no's before you hear a yes. You're gonna hear nine no's before you hear a yes. That's just what it is.
So I
And you
think
have to.
once you, no, I'll let you go.
No, no, no. Yeah, I think we're both saying the same. Like, you got to develop that thick skin, and you have to take that burn the boats mentality. It's like, well, I'm here. I'm not going anywhere, and this is the only thing that this is what I'm gonna do. And but at the same time, not being afraid. I think we kind of talked about this the other day too. Not being afraid to start over, not being afraid to start anew. Like, there's nothing wrong with saying, I'm 3 months into this. I think I'm 3 months into this in the wrong. Let me start over before you invest more time and resources into doing something the wrong way. And that kind of echoes back to at the beginning of your process, just making sure that you're seeking out that right advice and seeking out those right. Maybe it's not. Maybe when you get that no from that bank, maybe it's not walking away. Maybe it's saying, "Hey, what would make me more bankable in your system? Help me understand what would make me a bankable." Figuring out, what is it that a distributor is looking for. If you're selling a product and you're trying to work with a distributor and they keep telling you no, maybe instead of asking, going and seeing, all right, what performance marks or what type of visibility, what do I need to do on my end and make it more attractive? And yeah, just be ready to hear those no's. Be ready to keep going and make adjustments to your brand and understanding that, especially, and I'm talking purely from a because I sell things essentially, but it's the consumer who wants it. It doesn't really matter what you want, especially from it's you're making a product to serve the public, and so keeping that in mind whenever you're doing something, even it's not about you. So you be prepared to hear no's and naysays. So
And I think, I mean, we could say you could have stopped when your merch wasn't selling. You could have
yeah.
stopped when nobody wanted to give you the money for the bottles and the labels. You could have stopped. I mean, there's so many opportunities that you could have stopped. But just just one of the ways that hopefully everyone is seeing that you can make those type of connections is literally attending events like this. Hearing other small business owners' stories. I know the West Des Moines Chamber has an event coming Tuesday morning that Marquas will be speaking at. It's
Mhm.
going to an event like that and handing out your business card and just doing your elevator pitch,
Yeah.
and letting people know this is what I'm doing. Because there's going to be a lot of people around that's like, hey, I know this person, I could connect you to them. Or, hey, I know this person, and I think you guys would be able to feed off of each other. So going to a lot of the events, getting out, networking, telling your story. I mean, sometimes, like, and I'm not sure the whole story, but the $40,000 that you needed, even if somebody was going to be able to help you, you probably wouldn't have been able to get the money in time.
That's the exactly. It would have created another hole anyway, because I was honestly still 60 days out from getting those payments from those distributors anyway. I was just trying to keep. It was the best worst problem in the world to have, because you ship all that stuff and you thinking, all right, now I got a few. Let me sit back, and it sold out. And see, when it's like, oh, but no, that was a blessing in disguise for sure. Because I don't know if I had done all that banking and taken all those loans that I'd have been in position in time to pounce on that opportunity to start the development firm. And so, yeah,
Okay, another question. Can you talk more about networking beyond the elevator pitch and handing out business cards?
Yeah. Um, it's definitely beyond that. I mean, I think another, especially with the internet, and I tell people this all the time, how you carry yourself on the internet is huge. Like if you want people to view you as a, and this is especially because you can get off your elevator pitch essentially just by how you carry yourself on social media. If you click on my profile right now, the only thing you see that I have going on is real estate, alcohol, and maybe some music. There's nothing personal or anything. I would say the best way, honestly, that I've gone about networking has been just by carrying myself in a professional manner, like handling business in my own way, letting people see that even without help, I can handle business on my own. And that attracts people to do business with you because it's like, well, I know if he's doing it, it's got to be some money in it. It's got to be something out of it because he's doing it. And so just carry yourself in a way that like you should carry yourself in a way like you don't need to make the elevator pitch, almost like your business is in a, and that's not to say that you're in some braggadocious, you remain humble, but that's just me personally, is just carrying myself in a way where I won't, when my name comes up, people know that business is about to get done or that something is about to happen. And so
So you're more of a social media marketer. Do
for
you go
sure.
to the chamber events or do you go to
I
have you
don't
done
I have done some of those, definitely do some of those. But I've also found in some of those rooms, because everyone is there to make the elevator pitch sometimes, that it becomes a little bit, that can become, I mean, yeah. I mean, I think that it's just staying active, just stay active, how you carry yourself, how you present yourself, how you market yourself. Um, and I don't want to, I can't stress that enough, because even without a product, you can still, even without having your business be ready, you can still appear to be business ready, and you can still carry yourself in a manner that, and so don't, I would definitely say take advantage of social media, take advantage of social media for sure.
So, and I know I didn't ask you this question yesterday, but I'm very passionate about financials and making sure
Sure.
people have all of their figures together and that they stay ready. So when
Yeah.
an opportunity does come up, they have that stuff together. And I'm assuming when you was an artist, you probably didn't have a profit and loss statement.
No,
Um,
no. All
when
I
you
knew is
was
I had
doing
money
the
in the bank. If there's money in the bank, I know I'm doing good. It's like, all right. As an artist,
no,
I was like, I didn't know. I was like, man, look, I got all this money. And what was crazier, I had all that mixtape money, most of it cash, because I was selling mixtapes. So I'm in a dorm room with like 70 bands, just like ordering pizzas, you know what I'm saying? Like, but definitely figured out, and that's allegedly. I didn't have that much money.
yeah, no,
Yeah,
because you would have deposited it into a
I would have
business
deposited that and
account,
paid taxes
and
on
you
that.
would
That's a,
okay,
yeah,
okay,
that's a rap
yes.
story. But
So hold on, wait. So when you was doing the festival, you for sure had to keep your numbers together.
that's when I started, because that's when I started like, oh, I got a sponsor. They want to see things. So I started figuring out on the fly, like, okay, I need to, and then after it was the biggest blessing. So like I had that phase of like, where it's like, all right, let me just keep a Excel sheet of what's going in, what's going out, what are my costs, what does all this look like? And then that led to where it's like, I'm not good at this. So let me find a CPA, let me find someone who will do for at least, maybe someone who will work. I think at that first time I had someone do 2 hours a month for me. And like and they were charging like 50 an hour. Will you do 2 hours a month and just make sure my financials are right? Just look over them and just make sure that I'm doing right. Just make sure that I'm spending right. And then that's the biggest blessing that I've is, finding that CPA that'll do those couple hours a month for you. Maybe it's, I mean, even now where it's like, yo, 10 hours a month, please just look over everything, make sure that 6 months from now that I won't be struggling to pay rent or be or be sitting in,
And see,
you
I
know,
think that is one of the things that I learned about you and your journey is you understand what your capabilities are, and then you understand where you're just that's not your lane. So
so
you know that up front. And then you will pay somebody to do your bookkeeping, you'll pay somebody to write the grants, you'll
I'll
pay
go broke
somebody to
paying people to do it. Like there's times where you have to accept as an entrepreneur, Like, yo, there's been months where I've made like, and it hurts. It'll hurt your feelings. There's been months where I bring in like 35, 40 bands in profit, right? And then architecture and this and that. And you look up and you got 1,500 left over. But to the average person, it's like, yo, you balling, like go crazy. But it's you're gonna have those times where it's like it's gonna cost you more to run your business the right way. But man, like on that tail end, when it starts, the investment of running your business the right way is the second level of investment when you start a business. Like, don't just take that money and just eat off of it. Reinvest that into the business to make that business run. The liquor company runs now at a point where I don't have to go bottle anything. Like,
Right.
it's, you know what I'm saying? It's you run it in a way, and it's expensive. It's more expensive to do it, but it's done the right way, and that you're
So,
spot on is like,
when did your liquor business start? Like what year?
what was that? 2018, 2017, 2018.
2018. Okay.
I think
And
I lost it in
how many people do you employ today?
um about 8 full-time, about 2 sales reps. And then obviously when we get to the with this new facility, that's a part of where it's like preparing for that stage of growth too, where taking on additional clients and doing different, yeah. But for now we're small and growing. But even with like so that's on the liquor side though, right? Because in the
Right.
development firm, there's also, there's architects, there's attorneys, there's 2 separate groups of people that money goes out to. You know what I mean? And
Right,
so
right, right, right.
um yeah, so it's dope because and even now we're using alcohol profits to kind of keep development firm going until there's actual tenants in the building. That's a business you have to keep propping up. That's one of those long-term type of plays. But yeah.
So when the pandemic hit, did you face any challenges in any of your businesses?
Yeah. You know what's funny? I was joking. I was sharing all those memes about the Suez Canal, that little blockage of the Suez or whatever.
Yes.
I was sharing all the memes, not knowing that my bottles was on a few of them boats. So
That's what
that
you
was
get.
one of the that no, it was literally karma, because it was one of those things where that was also a part of that bottle problem I had, because the price of bottles went up. I had to go to a different supplier for my bottles, and the cost were like an extra $2 a bottle, and that may not seem like a lot, but the extra $2 a bottle that cuts directly into profit margins. You know what I mean? And so, um,
And I think Tafik was talking about it last month where a dollar, even a quarter is a huge
even a
difference
quarter is
because
huge.
yes,
It's
because then not only is it that, but it's also the price of the labels going up. It's the price of
the
the
shipping prices because of gas. Like,
yes,
even
and
a
then you don't
there's
want to put that onto the customer. So what do you do?
so what do you eat it? And that's the thing. Especially as a new company, I can't just say, "Oh, I'm gonna raise the price $10 because I need to keep eating." Like, no, I'm still building brand loyalty and still building that consumer base where you want them to trust that that price is going to be consistent or within a dollar of what it is, depending on where they buy it. Even on top of that, there was a labor shortage. I mean, it was an interesting time to try to upscale a company, but it was one of those things, because we survived it, we're stronger. Like, we're almost invincible now as a result of it, because we learned to adapt. Um, and then the bottle prices went back down because the canal opened back. Like, it was one of those things where at a certain point, with patience and it was scary. Don't get me wrong, because that growth put us in a place where you grow too fast, it could actually kill your company. And so, yeah.
Um, so for there was a comment, cash is king. But I think, I mean, something that I try to teach a lot of small businesses is that debt is not always the best option. Of course, your company could have grew so much bigger, so much faster had you been able to receive the funds that you needed. But like I said, it's the lessons and it's your story and it's going to be your history.
Yeah.
Um, and I could talk to you for forever. So please make sure to ask the questions if you have them, um, because your story is amazing and I could go on
Thank
for
you.
days. Um, so before we run out of time, there's one thing that I always ask our speakers, and what's the one piece of advice would you give to the small business owners that are online today?
Um, just don't give up. Just you're gonna hear a bunch of no's. Just keep going. You have to believe in. Nobody's gonna believe in your product probably, but you. No one's gonna believe in it but you. So you have to put in that extra legwork to make people believe. And if people aren't believing around you, find other people. Sell it somewhere else. I mean, that's my. And also, all money isn't good money. Just don't be so quick to bring on an investor early on. You don't know what the value of your company is for the first few years of the process. Don't be so quick to take on that high interest loan. Just grind it out. You may think that you need to be big and massive right now. You don't. You can make great money just doing it on a small scale, making it efficient, and putting yourself in position to really grow at your pace. And that'd be my biggest piece of advice: is whatever you do, make sure that you're growing your company at your pace. Um, yeah,
Um, so you have all your businesses, and then you have the real estate development that you have going up Center and Sixth.
mm-hmm.
What's next? What's next for Marquez? Because I know you have a plan.
It's nothing. I'm just grinding all these out. I'm gonna continue on the path with these. I think I got enough popping right now. I think more music. Um I just came off of a reality show on Discovery Channel about making moonshine, and so more TV content, more stuff like that. And just building on top of the foundations that I've already got going, really.
Okay, so I think we talk about that here is like once you're in a comfortable spot or you're getting things going, sometimes you literally have to just stop
Yeah,
and perfect
focus.
what you're doing. You have to focus and do and work on the plan that you have right now versus because I think I'm an overthinker, so I'm always thinking what's next, what's next,
Yeah,
what's next. But sometimes it's like what's now. Um,
yeah,
let's
yeah,
work on what's now. And then I know, so I mean, so your liquor business is continuously growing.
yeah.
Do you ever plan on selling it, or what are your plans for your liquor business for the future?
Um, I've that's been I've researched it. I've done some research on but I don't plan on selling it. Like I was saying earlier, I don't think I'd even really know what the value of the company is until I'm at least 5, 6, 7 years in. And so I want to no, I'm not selling it. And as a matter of fact, I just put out a new bourbon line called Silk Road. Y'all go cop that too. And this is actually what I talk about, where things feed into each other. Every bottle sold of this feeds into the nonprofit that's going into Center at Six. And
Oh,
so you just create, you create conduits for, where everything kind of supports each other. But no, I'm not selling. I'm not selling.
and normally I would be like, "Ooh, let me get a sample or let me get, but you educated me on the Iowa laws, liquor laws, and how you literally cannot give me a free bottle."
I try to tell people that all the time. You think I'm being like a jerk or something. Like, the state laws here, because of this being a moonshine state and a Al Capone whiskey state, we still have those laws on books. So like, I can't even pour you more than a shot in a glass, or I'll get like 10 years in prison. The laws are crazy. So
So
no,
don't
it's
ask him for a free bottle. I've
don't ask
already
me for the free
tried.
bottles. I can't even make commercials really. Like, that's why you don't see any whiskey billboards or anything, or really any whiskey people like sponsoring events. It gets kind of iffy with legality with liquor, not beer, just spirits. So
Okay. Um, let me see. Okay, so we have another moment for any additional questions. I'll go ahead and thank Marquez for being here. Thank you for all of your information. Thank you to the audience for attending and for engaging. We know us here at the Iowa Center, we have a lot of programming coming up. So please visit www.theiowacenter.org. Um, I know we're talking about networking, so there's a lot of opportunities, but remember, there's other resources out in the community. uh, of course, I think the Iowa Center is the best. The WBC is amazing, but there's the SBDC, there's the partnership, there's I know, like I said earlier, Marquas will be speaking on Tuesday at the West Des Moines Chamber. So get out and
Yeah.
network,
Come
meet
and talk to
people,
people. Yeah.
make those connections. Um, Everybody is thanking you. Oh, so I
Oh,
will,
word. Let me see.
yeah. Everybody's thanking you in the chat. So if there are no additional questions, I will go ahead and end this with my piece of advice that I have for everyone, and that is do what you love and love what you do. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.